is here. Common spelling. It was a word they made up, but yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about social engineering and my thoughts on it, coming from investigation point of view, that background. If you have any questions during the whole thing, feel free to interrupt me, raise your hand or whatever. Maybe not interrupt me.
Do I need this? That's the radio voice. May I have your attention? May I have your attention, please? Yeah. So I'll get a little into my background and experience here. First, before we do anything else, do not pretend to be a cop. Okay. If during our conversation here, our talk, I'm going to talk about both offensive uses, or how like you would use, I say offensive, how you would use social engineering to get the things that you're trying to get, to accomplish the things you're trying to accomplish. But I'm also going to talk about how to defend yourself against people using it against you. It's going to be a little fluid because in my mind, it's all kind of the same thing. It's like playing chess, right? There is no moment in chess, and I am not good at chess, so this is probably a bad example, but there is no moment in chess where you're not playing offense and defense at the same time, right? It's all the same. It's possible you're playing against someone like me who is terrible at chess and I know the basic stuff and you destroy me. So to you, the defense isn't really there. You're basically just on offense. But it's also possible you're playing against someone who's way better than you. And you need to recognize the signs that that person is just better at you than whatever it is, and recognize these flags. If there's anything you take away from this talk, I hope it's that you're better equipped to understand how you feel in a moment and to understand what's going on, and if someone is trying to take advantage of you or socially engineer you to do something that you don't want to do. And you're able to articulate that so you can remember it for the next time, either for you to use it or if someone tries to use something against you again in the future. That's learning to understand what's going on in any given moment. So don't pretend to be a cop. Don't pretend to be a judge, a lawyer, a doctor, anything that's legally protected. Like if you're doing social engineering as part of your job, don't pretend to be those things. That could be problems. So who am I? That's a Linux joke right there, or Unix. Yeah, some of the nerds in the room. I spent 15 years as a police officer. It's like technically 14 years, 11 and a half months, whatever, 15 years. 8 years as a negotiator. That is at the police department I was at. That is it's a secondary duty. So it wasn't like I only did that, right? I was on call. I actually never did any hostage negotiations, but I did dozens and dozens of negotiations with people who wanted to hurt themselves or somebody else, or escape from, they're in a building or something, or a house, threatening to burn it down, whatever. But never any hostages in my situation. Those were only exercises. Spent 4 years as a robbery detective. And a robbery in this instance is a violent crime. It's when someone puts a gun in your face or a knife or something. It's not like the Hamburglar. The example I used to use was the burglar steals the cheeseburgers when you're not looking. The ham robber puts a gun in your face, right? It's a little different. So burglary is a little different, but colloquially we say I got robbed when your car might have gotten broken into, but I did the violent crime side of things. So the reason I bring that up is because the people that I'm talking to, when I'm doing interrogations with them, have all crossed a line that most people would think of as being a line, that you stepped over this line of a violent thing. So it's a mentally different place than someone who was shoplifting, if that makes sense. I am currently a cyber operator with Zatir, and they're in Arlington, so very close by. I actually live here in Gaithersburg, very close by now. And I am an operator with the Air Guard, the Maryland Air Guard, the 175th, the Cyber Wing. We can talk about that offline later if you like, a little bit. I am former Marine Corps infantry, fought in Iraq in 0405. So I used to do cool things, but I'm getting kind of old now and my back hurts. So that's why I do computer stuff now. And as you can see, I'm starting to get injuries from that. So just got diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome and Anyone here who's my age or older probably knows as you get older, you feel young, but your body doesn't. So it doesn't do the things you want it to do. Um, I worked at Dell Tech Support for several years back in the late 90s. So it's possible you might have called Dell and heard, thank you for calling Dell Tech Support. This is Tom speaking. Can I have your service tag number, please? I feel like that's really where I honed a lot of um, my speaking. If you've never worked tech support, it's not a fun job. I really enjoyed it, but you get to talk to a lot of people over and over and over and over. And some of them are in a good spot in their life, but usually if they're calling you, that's not a good day. And you have to learn how to go through and find solutions for that person when they're having a bad day. And I cannot describe how well that prepared me to be a cop. Seems weird, but it really did. And I'm a nerd. Hence the dumb jokes you're going to get. There we go. What is social engineering? One of the definitions I found on the top was using psychological manipulation to achieve specific human outcomes. I personally like the bottom one a little better. And it's intentionally getting people to do things with manipulation. So I have 3 kids, 5, 10, and 11. When they were babies, if any of y'all have kids, you understand that little babies cry when they need a diaper change or they're hungry or they whatever. They're manipulating you, but they're not really intentionally doing it, right? So it's not really social engineering, but we all do these things all of the time. Some people, you probably all have friends or family. Maybe you're this person in your group of friends or family who are somehow able to always get that deal on the airport. You're always able to get someone to smile when you're getting a cheeseburger or doing whatever. And they always seem to like just kind of float through life. Like it just seems like, man, that person's always getting things done. I was always that person. I had the gift of gab. Doesn't mean I'm that way with my kids. Family's always different. They see the real you. But yeah, it's learning to do things in a way you're intending to get an outcome, a specific outcome, whatever that outcome is, and you're intentionally changing the way you talk, the way you look, the way you act, the way you say things, how you do things, or what you do to get the outcome you're looking for. Hopefully that's a positive thing you're doing too. Oh, sorry, go back one. One more, sorry. I think I hit it. Another one. Why does any of this matter? Why does this talk matter? Understanding the intentions of others is good for both the offensive side and the defensive side and the mix. I talked a little bit earlier, I kind of touched on this talk isn't going to be just offensive stuff. It isn't going to be just defensive stuff. It's going to be very fluid, like a chess game or like a soccer match or football. Well, football is a little more cut and dry, but you get the point. Because a lot of your interactions are going to be that way. It's going to be some give and take, some offense and defense at the same time. And it's a lot of the same techniques that you're using while you're doing this kind of thing. So it's important for you, whether you're trying to get something, whether that's a great upgrade on a seat when you're flying on a plane, or whether that's you have this as a job and you're trying to like get past somebody in the door because your job is to be a red teamer and get inside of a building and get into the network, right? Or whether you're trying to understand the intentions of someone who's talking to you and what is it they want. Try to understand the intentions. I'm going to bring this up multiple times and try to recognize when something feels weird or feels off so you can document that for later in your head and recognize that in the future when you see it. And getting useful things from others to prevent it from happening to you is kind of the same thing. I'm just reading the lines as they come and talking about it. So if I do that, I'm like, oh, I just said that. It's just what it is. Next slide, please. I'll try it. Oh, you did. I break things down very dummy style, just like my PowerPoint presentation here. Soft and hard, individual and teamwork. If you haven't noticed, my PowerPoint presentation is very Spartan. There's not much to it. That's on purpose. Because this is more of a conversation. I, like some others in this room, I'm in my 40s, right? And I grew up when hit the high school age and college age when PowerPoint first came around. and they had explosions and fires, and it was ridiculous. And I learned to really hate PowerPoint presentations. And they've gotten better now. People have toned it down. I went extreme, very toned down on purpose. So I can get you these slides, but they really don't mean much. These slides are more just for me to look at. So don't worry too much if you miss something. I can always give it to you later. No big deal. So what is a soft technique? Much like the rest of what I was talking about, this is all very fluid, right? So you're not necessarily going to stay soft or stay hard when you're talking about something. Has anyone here seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? Fantastic. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin. It's an 80s movie. It's great. It's a buddy love movie, whatever, Thanksgiving holiday. It's okay if you haven't, but if you've seen that, then you know that I'm gonna refer to it a couple times in this. John Candy is very soft in his interactions. He very rarely raises his voice or gets angry. It happens, but he's very disarming. He's non-hostile. He has normal dialogue. He's not trying to gather information, but if you're doing this in an offensive style, or someone's doing it towards you, socially engineering you in a soft manner, it's going to seem disarming. It's going to just seem like a normal conversation, right? And let me try it here. There we go. And then more hard is what you would think of as like a police interrogation, right? Not necessarily. I usually talk just like this in my interrogations, very soft. But imagine I used to work on 6th Street in Austin, Texas. Have anyone been to 6th Street in Austin? It is a zoo, yeah. So I worked there as an officer, as a detective, as a corporal, and then as a sergeant before I left. So weekends and nights, that's what I did. So it's very possible you've seen me. And if you've been there after 10 p.m., you realize that it's not a place for someone over 25. It's yeah, Driscoll's, yeah, they have their own issues, their own security, but we have shootings and stabbings. I mean, it's not, New York City in the 70s, right? But it has its own issues and its own problems for Austin. Whenever something like that happens, someone has a shooting or a stabbing, you can't say, pardon me, sir, could you please put the gun down? That'd be great. No, you're going to be like, get on the ground, right? It's going to be a hard technique. But most things in life aren't calming and soothe or the other. They're usually not extremes, right? Most things in life are somewhere in the middle. But I use these two things just so you can kind of keep it in your head as a mental note of what's going on. Often, whenever you do something that's a hard technique or someone does that against you, it's used very quickly and then it sharply goes down. So think about my wife just got a phone call the other day. She works in healthcare, and someone was trying to impersonate the DEA to get information they could use to, who knows? There's lots of things you can do with the information they were trying to gather. And they called her. She just explained this to me because she saw one of the previous talks I gave, a shorter one at a different conference. And she's like, oh my gosh, this thing was that. This is what you're talking about. She only saw this last night, by the way. And so she didn't care. It's like, could you please watch? Anyway. And she mentioned like this person, it was this, like I need this information right now. This is so-and-so with the DEA. This is really important information. I need this. And then he quickly de-escalates. Like he's frantic and then he starts calming down. It's like, oh, I apologize. And he starts giving this fake information, all this other stuff. She's smart enough from stuff that I've talked to her in the past. She hung up on him. He calls back and she's like, we get our interactions with the DEA through email. She recognized red flag. Boom. This isn't normal. Something's wrong here. Let me get your office information, your contact information. He kept calling back, persisting. He kept escalating back up, going back down. So he's trying to bring it up and make it seem like this is really important. This is a big investigation. You have to do this right now. And then it goes back down. These techniques are used a lot against defraud the elderly and things like that. You've seen it on YouTube perhaps, but so it doesn't always stay hard. It can go soft and the way people talk. But usually the focus is on something very specific and usually very time sensitive. That's how they get you. It's like a used car salesman, the metaphorical used car salesman. Maybe not today. I don't know. But it's about building pressure and getting the desired reaction. Did this a lot when I was doing interrogations for people. So I was also involved in homicide investigations as a violent crimes unit. I did mostly robberies, but I worked at night. And so when homicides happened, I would sometimes have to fill in and help those detectives as well. And of course, you're not trying to get the person to freak out. You're not trying to go in hard, but if they start lying to you and saying things, sometimes you have to raise things up and let them know that you are calling them on their bluff and build pressure towards them. Ooh. Combination. This is what you're mostly going to see, an emotional roller coaster ride. When I did my negotiations, we get called somewhere. I remember one specifically. This guy was inside of his house. He shot at his neighbors through the window, and then he shot at responding police. So we got there. He has his own issues, mental health issues, but you can't allow someone to be shooting out of their window, right? You just can't do that because he's already shooting at the neighbors. And what we're trying to do is bring him on an emotional roller coaster ride. So if you can tire somebody out emotionally, some of y'all probably have had kids or have been around children. You know that one good way to get them to go to bed or take a nap is to get them emotionally or physically tired, right? Okay, let's go run around this park for a minute. And they just run, spin, or watch TV or whatever. But if they're sitting down pretty calm the whole day, they may not get tired, but you get them tired, physically tired or emotionally tired, they will pass out. Same thing with people. If someone is making you use your brain power up and down and up and down and taking you emotionally on a roller coaster ride, it's going to physically tire you out. You're going to be tired from that interaction. You're going to want to stop. So this is usually the most effective manner, and that's bring someone up, bring them back down, bring them up, bring them down, bring them up, bring them down, over and over and over. This is best when you have a team of individuals that supports you, whether you're doing the offensive thing or if that person's doing it against you, it's very likely to have a team. If you've seen any of the YouTube videos of these scammers, there's several out there. I'm not going to name any specifically, but where people go against the scammers that call in and they think it's an older person and they do like hackbacks. Those are great videos. But look at the techniques they're using against who they think is an older person who doesn't know what's going on. And it's really someone young using, voice mimicking software. But look at what they're doing to that person. They're social engineering them. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are just terrible. Another good example I thought of the other day, I was watching this movie with my kids. Have y'all seen Ready Player One? The movie, not the book. There's a scene in there where the bad guy, the main bad guy, Sorrento, is talking to the protagonist, the hero protagonist that we have, Wade. And they're in his office, and Sorrento has a bug in his ear, right? He's listening to his team, and he's trying to convince Wade that I'm just a guy just like you. And it flashes back to his team. It's a room full of nerds that are telling him, say this, say this, say this. And it looks like Sorrento from this scene in his office, like, yeah, he's just saying these things. He's actually just coming up with these things because it genuinely means something to him. But Wade calls him on it. And we'll touch on this in a little bit, but it's specifically because Sorrento is not authentic. He doesn't authentically fit in this spot. He doesn't authentically match what he's saying. The words he's saying don't match who he is. And Wade recognizes that. That scene is so perfect for this whole idea of social engineering because he has a team behind him who tell him the right thing. That's exactly how he would do things is negotiations. You'll usually see, if you ever you see something on the news where someone's holed up in a house or whatever, it happens all the time. You'll have like a big trailer there. Inside that trailer, the command post, there's usually a table about a third of this size, and there's a team of people sitting around it coming up with ideas. And one person's on the phone or on some kind of device to communicate with the person on inside. And that one person, their whole goal is to communicate and focus like Sorrento did on the target, on the mark. and everybody else is trying to give them ideas. There's a way that it happens. It passes through different individuals. So the number one, the person talking, is only talking to one other person. You're not hearing a lot of voices to avoid distractions, but it's a whole team. And sometimes, talking about the defensive side, when someone has decided you're the mark and they want you, either the access you have because of what you do for your job, your money, whatever it is, they've decided you're the mark. They want you to buy a car, whatever it is. They'll use a team of people, but you'll only ever see one. Maybe you'll see more people. Like if you go to a dealership, you can go to any of these dealerships and go experience what I'm talking about right now. Not in a negative way. They're just trying to make money too. But you'll have a team of people coming up and talking to you and doing things because they're trying to get something from you. Social engineering, I need to make sure I harp on this, doesn't mean it's bad, right? If I go and I'm trying to get a seat upgrade for free or a discounted price at an airport, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I'm not doing a bad thing. I just want a better seat, right? I'm old.
It's gotta go to someone.
It's got to go to someone. And it's going to go to the nicest person or the gold member or whatever it is, right? It's got to go to somebody. Exactly. It used to be when I first started flying, and for me in the 90s, you could bring a fruit basket with you, a gift basket, cost you $20. Bring that in there and just give it to the person at the counter. Get an upgrade that costs hundreds of dollars because you're being nice and sweet. It's obvious that they know the game you're playing, but you still brought cookies. So, it doesn't cost them anything. So just because someone is socially engineering you doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You need to decide if what's happening to you at that time is something you're okay with or not. If any of you have ever been dating anybody ever in your life, and the first time you meet somebody, the whole interaction is nothing but, look at me, I'm this fantastic person. Oh no, I'm this great person. It's peacocking, right? It's like the peacock. If you've ever seen a peacock in person, you're like, really, dude? You really need those feathers? Like, really? That's a bit much. If you've ever been to 6th Street, we would point that out. We called it peacocking. Like, oh, look at that guy peacocking. Oh, he's dressed up fancy. Like, of course you're not gonna dress up like this, right? Or maybe they have an animal with them. Like, look at this thing I have. I'm an interesting person. It's what you do. It doesn't mean it's bad. It could be bad, right? Maybe this person is not at all like what they look like. But I mean, everyone does it. So it doesn't mean it's bad. But you want to have intention behind it. You want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Hopefully, if you're doing this to somebody, it's for good reason. And then if someone's doing it to you, hopefully you can recognize it so you understand what they're trying to do. Next slide. How do I do things? Combination. One of my favorite things is to meet the expectations of somebody, what they're looking to see. I used to say, show people what they think they want to see. And then that meets their expectations. And then you can either just continue on meeting those expectations, or you can subvert those expectations and flip the script on them. I mentioned briefly before John Candy's character in that movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You should totally see it. It's more of a family movie, but you should totally see it. He is caring. He is honest. He's not really competent, but people care about those 3 things. Are you a caring person? Are you competent? And are you honest? And that's for that interaction, right? If I go to buy a car, I'm going to bring this up a lot. Does that person, and you go talk to a salesman, if they look like they're constantly distracted and looking off, you're going to find somebody else because they don't care about you. They don't care about the interaction. Are they honest? If you go there and you see they have these markups on nitrogen in the tires, which by the way, air is like 80-something% nitrogen. It means air. There's air in the tires and they're charging you, whatever. I'm not here to go on a rant about used cars. If they look like they're not honest, they seem like they're lying. If it's obvious the person's lying, this doesn't feel real. Something's wrong with this interaction. And are they competent? If they have no idea what they're talking about, what are they doing? What are you doing with that person? Go find another salesman. Those 3 things, caring, honest, and competent, are what we look for as individuals when we're trying to buy something, when we're trying to find someone who is going to be our partner, when we are looking for anything, right? And it's the same thing you need to show whenever someone's trying to talk to you. So if you're trying to get something, whether it be a seat upgrade, which doesn't happen on Southwest because they don't have them, whatever, you need to show that you're caring about this interaction, you're honest, and you're competent. We care about these things. Those are big. I like to let people talk. I know I'm the one up here talking right now, but the easiest thing to do, if you ever watch an interrogation, there's some really good ones online. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. There's a guy who breaks down interrogations. He does a pretty good job. You usually just let the other person talk. If they get nervous enough, they'll talk. Usually, not always. But if they just talk, you can just sit there. Mm-hmm. Really? And they'll just go on and on and on, tell you everything you want. That can also bite you in the metaphorical butt. I had a guy once, my longest interrogation ever was 8 hours long. And I quit because I just had to go home. I was tired. I worked night shift. And this guy was scared to go to jail. So it's for some reason, I got him hooked. He wanted to talk to me. He liked me. He felt comfortable and safe with me. And I gave him cigarettes. And he didn't want to leave. So he would not stop talking. And what people don't realize, as a detective, I usually don't talk to you unless I already have evidence on you. I don't necessarily want to talk to you for 2 hours because everything you say, that detective has to go look up. And if you're making up all these stories about stuff that happened, like, man, now I got to go look all this stuff up. And then at the end of the day, I got to type up everything you said, like not word for word, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of paperwork. When you plead the fifth, I don't have to do any of that. I get to be done. And it's usually a lot easier, right? But
Let me get you a lawyer, okay?
yeah. But so where I was at, we actually had to read the blue card. We had a blue card, the Miranda rights, and we have them initial by every line. You have the right to remain silent and not make any statement at all. Do you understand that, right? Can you initial right here? It goes very deep, and those are really important rights, obviously. But sometimes people just want to talk. They want their side to be heard, and that's fine because you actually get a lot of information out of folks. That's actually really true. Let people talk. Yes. You know, people love to talk about? Ask people about themselves. Hey, where are you from? What school you go to? Right? What did I do when I talked to all y'all? I asked you who you were, what you're doing. Because I actually I'm genuinely curious. I'm not trying to manipulate you, but I'm asking you about yourself because you're going to talk about it. If I ask you about the sports game, maybe you don't watch sports. Ask people about themselves. People care about themselves. Hopefully. Yes.
So the word manipulation, does it mean you are not genuine?
Not necessarily. It's about being intentional. So usually in the context that we're talking about, we think of it in a negative connotation. So I'm going to try to make this person happy so that I can get an upgrade on my seat or get an extra burger or something like that. Sometimes it's more about making yourself fit in so that you're comfortable just talking interaction. So let's say that you're nervous around people in general. You can actually socially engineer yourself to calm down and to be in that interaction and be your genuine self. Like, okay, so I know that my genuine self, if you were just to sit down next to me on a couch and we were already friends, I would talk about you because you're my friend. But I don't know you right now. So I need to act like you are my friend. So I need to manipulate myself into saying the right thing so that we can have a true conversation and be the place that we want to be. So yeah, is it fake? Not really. It's a little forced sometimes. It depends.
Consciously aware of.
Yes, it's being consciously aware of it and cognizant. So I can see the wheels turning in your head. Are you manipulating people in a negative? Is it bad? Is it manipulation? Kind of, but it doesn't mean it's bad. When my son, who has emotional issues, when I see him getting the signs that he's about to rage out, I intentionally bring things down. And I am very intentional about the way that I talk to him to keep him de-escalated and keep the emotions down because it works. But I'm not being fake with him, right? He's still my son. I'm angry sometimes in that, but I know that if I raise my voice, things are going to go bad. But if I tell myself, okay, I see the signs, he's doing this, I can see this going on. I need to intentionally calm myself down, let him talk. I can get the outcome that I want. And so I'm kind of manipulating him, but not for a bad reason. It's for a good reason for everybody. And so to me, it is genuine because my genuine outcome is that I love my son and I want to maintain a good relationship in the moment and long term. So I have to change how I act to get the best outcome for both of us. The danger is when you're doing that, like in a situation we described earlier, maybe you're single and you're on the market and you're going to pretend or intentionally change the way you act towards a potential future partner, some girl you met in a bar, some guy, whatever. And you're basically making everything up. You're lying about stuff. To me, that's morally wrong, right? In a negotiation situation where someone might try to kill somebody or jump off of a bridge, even if you're lying about it, that might morally be the right thing to do because you're trying to even
As long as you are able to legally and morally justify your action, you're okay. Well, legally, police officers can lie.
absolutely.
They don't have a lawyer, they realize.
I've lied to people. I've been asked in court, Detective Howard, did you lie to this person? And my answer is absolutely. Because there's a reason for it. But generally speaking, what we're trained, when I was trained as a negotiator, even before being a detective, you want to try not to lie because lies are hard to remember. It's easier to remember something that's the truth. Even if you're kind of fudging a little bit. For example, I've been shot. I usually don't bring up the rest of the story where it was technically I kind of shot myself because it was a ricochet off of a really close target, but bullet penetrated me and like took a chunk out. So if I've talked to people who have been shot and they're talking about, you don't know what it's like to be shot. I'm like, I do. I've been shot. I don't bring up the rest of the story. Like, well, exactly. But I'm not going to lie. Like, yeah, I had my leg blown off. Like I did not. I was in Iraq, but and some of my friends, but I did not, right? I'm not going to make up a story. And that's when we do our training for negotiations, we always mock people who have to make up a complete lie. And we try to bring it up because you really don't want to lie if you can help it. As a detective, it was rare that I lied. I did occasionally, but it was only when I was really sure that I knew it was going to happen. And that wasn't always the case. Sometimes you think you know something and it's not the case. But I try not to lie. Yes. It is a moral gray spot. It depends on the situation and the ethics of that situation and your own ethical situation standpoint. But I can guarantee you, someone who's trying to take your money and they don't have those ethical qualms, they're going to lie to you and they're going to fake everything. Or they're just going to go over the top like some armed robbers, right? And stick a gun in your face. Like they've already crossed that line. So it's important for you to understand when these things are happening. So if it happens to you, you can identify it, hopefully not a gun in your face. And that if you're using it against somebody else, you can identify it in yourself too, hopefully, and see like, you know what? Maybe I should not say it this way. And don't get flustered by unexpected things, like people taking their clothes off in front of you. I was a cop. 6th Street, and it happened. It's weird things.
Would be a fascinating conversation that we ask the offline. Morality, you mentioned ethics. uh, the, the, the gray zone. So I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah, there's actually some really good other social engineers who do more physical penetration testing, which is this is a lot. And so like you're hired by a company, let's say, big megacorp hires you and a team of people. I want you guys to see if you can break into our company because I want you to emulate what a bad guy would do. And so you have to pretend to be people that you're not and do things that you wouldn't do. And when you hear the conversations of people who do this kind of thing, there is that ethical thing like, I pretended to be an inspector for this. Like there's a legal thing. You don't ever pretend to be a cop, certain things you never pretend to be. And I got my way in and I felt really bad for that person who was trying to help me. Sometimes they'll pretend to have a bad arm. I actually literally have one, but uh, just to have someone hold the door open for them so they don't have to badge in, or they'll pretend to be pregnant, or they'll pretend to have a child or whatever, just to get past somebody, and they feel bad about it a little bit, but it's their job.
There's one class. This penetrating a bank, and in the same building, on the same floor, was a charity. We went into the charity to see if we could get into the bank, through the common wall or something, right? Or there's maybe the presidency, like that. And we started talking to the owner of the charity, started telling about how he does documentary videos, because he carries book that looked like he was sort of winging it, not surprised. And so we started telling him how he could do it. The guy said, "Well, could you do a documentary video for me? Because I really want to try to promote this charity." And by the time he finished, he was heartbroken because he's been lying to this very nice person just to get access to the back room. So
Yeah,
had to go back and apologize.
And that's
You can traumatize people.
Absolutely. And that's one of the importance of having a red team like that. It's a good thing that the person who feels wrong about it is doing that to you versus someone who feels this is totally fine. This is normal. This is what I do. And hopefully you can learn from those situations. Next slide, please. Expectations. We talked about this briefly. You can meet the expectations of somebody, subvert the expectations, or both. How do you know what to expect? Well, we all watch TV, we watch movies. When I was a detective, people had a certain expectation of a detective, and it wasn't this, right? Not wearing a hoodie, t-shirt. They had certain expectations of what to see. If you meet somebody, whether it be a salesman or whatever, and that person's not meeting your expectations, they don't seem like they're honest, they don't seem like they're competent, they don't seem to fit that role, they're going to think something's wrong. And maybe it's because they've dealt with people doing documentaries in that case, multiple times. Most likely, probably not, right? And if they don't know what to expect, then what they expect is whatever they've seen before on TV or movies. Next slide. When I was a detective, I had a giant mustache. I had a coffee cup with me. I played the part. One of my partners that I had there, he had a cowboy hat. He still has it. He had a 6-shooter, big mustache. I love that guy. Not gonna throw his name out. He is amazing. And we played this great part. Whenever someone sees the cop with a giant mustache and a coffee mug that actually just had like diet soda in it, they're like, "Oh, you must be in charge." We had a joke once when I was a rookie cop. In Texas, we don't wear. I think here in the Northeast, sometimes they wear the hats, like the really old school fancy hats. They don't do that there because it's just too hot. You don't wear a tie. You wear a short sleeve. It's still really hot, but you wear differently. So one day I came in what we call the bus driver uniform. So I've got the hat on, I've got the tie, I've got the long sleeves, I got my one little ribbon because I'm a new guy. I don't have like a big rack, and I'm clearly young. But I did that for a whole day, super sweaty, middle of summer, and then everyone thought that I was in charge because I dressed the role they expect to see from all the TV shows from New York City. Oh, well, this must be the guy in charge. Come talk to you. And I made sure I carried that with me as I became a supervisor. I tried to play the role. Playing the role is, it's not faking it. It's more of they expect to see somebody who looks a little older. I'd let the gray out versus keeping my head shaved more like that on the sides. I was already gray there a little bit, but I would keep it trimmed more there because I want to look a little bit younger, but have a little bit of gray. As a sergeant, I would have more gray on purpose, just leave it out. I would look a little angry, which is kind of how I have a natural resting face of like, I don't want to be here. And then you get to know me and I'm like, I just want to have, hey, how's it going? I'm like a puppy. Um, doesn't mean I'm being inauthentic. It's more of, I know they want to see a sergeant. I'm going to make sure my stripes are visible. I'll make sure I'm by my people, make sure it's obvious that I'm the one who's in charge. So when they have a complaint, they're going to come talk to me. Next slide, please. Here's a little chart that I made where I was thinking about it on kind of how you would do things, interrogations and stuff. Are you using a combination of techniques? Is it a soft technique, a hard technique? Is it a team thing? Some of the stuff you might not have thought about, a job interview. If you've ever had a job interview, especially today, like a recent job interview for a technical thing, you might go through multiple rounds of interviews with multiple different people. And they're trying to see if you're someone who might fit in that company because they're going to make a decision that's going to last probably a long time. So they're actually trying to get you to say something that's good or disqualifies you, right? They're trying to fill you out. Very much like a date, a first date. So it's going to be soft. They're not going to be like, where did you work at last year? Did you really do Python for 12 years? They're not going to say that, right? It's going to be soft. And they're going to try to figure it out. And there's usually a team there. And even though one person is usually talking to you at the same time, they're sharing notes, especially if you're doing a virtual interview, they are sharing notes. And it's just how it goes. Recruiting scam, if anybody here's on LinkedIn, maybe you've got some, yeah, people constantly trying to recruit you. Maybe they're just trying to get information on you. Maybe they're legitimately just trying to fill up their database full of people so they can, that's usually what it is. But maybe they see what you do because you put it on LinkedIn and they're trying to get information out of you. Use car sales. I think I need to leave them alone. No offense, people who do sales of used cars. Everybody's got to eat. Okay, everybody's got to eat. Penetration testing. We've talked about that. Negotiations, robbery. It's different things. Please.
I went to a timeshare resolution company to get out of the timeshare, which was, and they were just as bad, I swear, as the timeshare people selling it, because they promise you the moon. No guarantees, really. And they want you to sign just like that night. They are just as bad.
For the recovery scam.
It was they were the ones that will help you get out of your timeshare.
Right,
yes. And we're representing you, and it's this, that, and the other, and they were so friggin' nasty. And so blatantly rude. I was like, that's like, and that wasn't, I have to say, that was not the first one. Scouting him out, trying to see. Get out.
Good luck.
But, they were doing all this bullshit. There was one, then the one goes get the other guy, then it's a three, and then it's this. They're definitely. It was like choreographed.
Sales is at the heart of it. Sales is social engineering, and it's not. They don't think of it that way, and it's not that it's a bad thing. It can feel really bad, but think about the way you felt after that. Think about like all the different things that, they went and they got their manager. Oh, they had to go do this. They had to do that. These are all little things, flags that keep them in your mental back pocket and remember it for the next time you see it because it might not be obvious next time.
Now, if you're dealing with a salesperson and the expectation of a long-term relationship, like, business partnership, then the soft approach would be without. They may get it occasionally hard during, quarter to the end of the month. It'll be soft, but if you're dealing with somebody like, timeshare or timeshare recovery, they're gonna probably hit you with hard because they don't expect you to ever come back.
Look at Bernie Madoff.
But burning was soft.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
Very.
anybody, they're like, man, he just seemed.
He used edification. Wasn't necessarily his sale. He used edification. So that got to Ernie never had to say anything. So
Exactly.
you know, he never had to sell because
It sold itself.
hey, this is Bernie. He did this, and Bernie just came in and said, "Give me your money." And they did.
Actually, he sent most people away because the hook was already set,
He's an expert.
waiting for them to come back the second or third time. We could take the money.
Just the former Carson, which I didn't really do because I wasn't into cliches. If you think about it from the inverse, because you're in that position, most people have stars and they have expectations, like you said. So then you have to deal with these tropes of customers who have their approach that they massaged and, sort of made their way into these particular, and I'm saying this from other people, because I was just a tech guy. Most people, whenever I started selling cars, they came in, this is the invoice I looked online, this is how much the car is worth, this is where the car came from, this is how much percentage rate I got from my bank. These are the customers of today. So the trope of used car salesmen is over.
Yeah.
They're all about prompts. They're all about same things that you're teaching us is the exact same thing because all you are at that point is service. So they're coming in with all the information.
And that's perfect example of subverting the customer's expectation because they think you're going to come out all like, hey.
To stop them, talk to them, give them outside. Most of my time was researching with them on. This is Kelly Blue Book. These are your friends. This is the Better Business Bureau. This is, I'm in NADA. That I'm having to have them prepare them just to disarm them with information that they could have got at home, but they got this, oh, I'm gonna get him. I know what they're gonna do to me, and it's normally that. But it's like that's been dead since the '90s. Nobody.
But it's possible, and it's possible that person's only experience came from like when the first time I got a car was terrible for me, right? I was young. I got a timeshare once and then immediately regretted it like an hour later, and then we can't get out of it. I've been scammed. 5th grade. Does anybody know who Vanilla Ice is?
Yes.
5th grade. My compulsive liar best friend at the time, I didn't know he's a compulsive liar, I just believed him, told me that if I memorized all the words to Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice would come to our school and take us and our whole family on a cruise ship, and we get those little mini cars. And of course I believed it because that makes total sense. Looking back, like it's so many obvious, but we all fall for stuff. Everyone does. I don't care who you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a little car. It was like, cool. It happens. And then your expectation of that. So some people have never bought a car and their only expectations from the movies, right? It might be from these old movies where obviously everybody's a character, right? And it's over the top. And people tell you, yeah, they're going to get you. So they come in. And so you do have to subvert those expectations. Kind of going back to what he said, the better you are at long-term relationships and car dealerships, I gave them kind of a bad thing there. A lot of them, they want to sell you a car and make you happy because they want you to come back with your kids and come back again. And exactly. And then some people don't care. And they're the ones who don't last, who don't make it. Next slide. How to identify when you're the mark. Dream job offer. It happens a lot when you're on LinkedIn. I think I get probably 5 or 6 emails every single week. Dream job. Nobody wants to be my friend. Okay. I met you in person though. So, flattery. I'm of the age now where if a young lady comes up to me, it's obviously a scam. So, but people are butter you up, like, oh, you're so great. That's kind of the same thing with dream job offers, right? And the recruiting scams that happen a lot. They're like, oh, your profile is the best I've ever seen. Like, no, it's not. Urgency of the interaction. We kind of talked earlier about how, like, my wife had that call this week from someone pretending to be from the DEA. And then if you feel yourself getting uncomfortable in the interaction, we're getting down to 5 minutes here. So that's the biggest one for me. If you feel yourself getting uncomfortable, you described your interaction you had they started bringing people in and you felt like something was wrong. That is some of the most important things. One of the most important things you can have is feeling yourself like something's not right here. Trust your gut. Next. If you're the one doing it or getting it done to you. It's hard to say. It just comes with experience. Yeah. I described before this stuff started, we were talking about this. This isn't really, it is kind of a science, but not really. It's more of like music. You can teach somebody music. You can teach them to read music. You can teach them to play the piano or play the guitar or whatever. But the way people do the same thing is going to be different. That's why we pay this person, this artist, thousands of dollars to do an album, and we don't care about this guy. If you listen to me play the same piece of music as somebody else, it's going to sound different, but it's the same notes. It's how it's done that's different. So it is kind of an art. I'm not going to say I'm the best artist, but in certain situations, I shine. In other situations, I don't. And a lot of that comes down to, am I authentic for that situation? That's like that movie, Ready Player One. Sorrento, the bad guy, was not authentic in that situation. He was saying the right things, but he did not seem authentic. And our hero protagonist, Wade, is like, yeah, this isn't right. Something's not right about this. And it's like, yeah, he did. It's a really good scene. Such a good scene. So what do you do? If someone's doing this to you, verify credentials, right? Don't trust what they say. Verify their credentials. So, oh, the DEA usually emails us. Let me go and what's your office phone number? Let me go look it up. Don't just call that number. They're lying to you, right? Don't rely on the information provided by them. Terminate, pause, or stall the interaction. Time is your friend. If you're working the front desk and someone comes in and says they're from so and so and they're here to do whatever, and you feel something's wrong, pause interaction, come back. You described your interaction you had with those folks trying to buy your stuff. You know what? We're going to come back later. You can always just walk out, usually. Sometimes you can't walk out and you need to have a friend come help you and get some help. Be aware of how you feel. Are you overly excited? Are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you happy? How is this person making me feel? Are they trying to manipulate me? And maybe it's a first date and they're trying to make you feel happy. And you're like, you know what? I'm cool with that. Whatever. But might not be. And then learn, this is the most important thing, take away from this thing. Learn to articulate what you feel and what you see. How am I feeling right now? What am I seeing? What's going on? So you can recognize this behavior in the future, either so you can use it because this is what you do for a living, or if someone's using it against you, like, this is shady. Something's wrong here. Next slide, I think, is my last. Yes, if there's time, yeah.
So that it was slide there. I was hacked. It's not a hack, but social engineering. Social in my first hack. So this lawyer, quote unquote, so they first they called me constantly saying that the message said that I was owed $6,000 from the credit card. So and you had to respond by 2 weeks from now, otherwise I'm not taking the report. Okay, so then that moment, I kind of suspect that I'm trying to sue me or something like that. I had this serious thinking because I went to somewhere, like that. So I said, oh, really? So now when they can let me a message 1-800 blah blah. Oh no, not what this radio number. So I called him back, said, what's going on? I get to report for this, and they gave me the code number and all that, right? So they say, okay, they told me to identify myself. So I said, okay, the name correctly, and then they gave me, I can suspect a little bit too, but this more question about innocent. I'm 100% innocent and have no clue. I never done before. I never had this situation. I go to the question there. How do I do this? But anyway, so sorry, I want to finish that. So what I did was I kind of feel that I shouldn't tell them on that, but they told me, okay, your name here, your social out there, your date, person date there, they gave me everything, exactly what I had. That made me believable because they have my social, they have my date of birth, they get everything what I have. So I know, and then I thought, it must be real. It's gotta be real because they have everything, my address and everything. But the problem, one thing that suspect me the most is like this. They say that they send me 10 email or 10 mails already. Warn you that you're going to bring to the court the next 2 weeks. Now you didn't respond back to me. They forced me. They said, okay, you need to respond back. I sent you 10 email already. I told them I never seen the email. I never seen the mail before. So I can suspect that I just moved somewhere else. They might be sending somewhere else. So I was believable. I brought believable, on that. So the point is, the social engineer, what they just described there, they make you so believable.
Yeah.
That you just fall for that. Then we foreigner, I wasn't born here, so I didn't know the system, how the system works. So I talked to my colleagues. Is that real stuff, or they know everything about me already? So
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So most people don't know the systems, right? They don't know that's how it will never go that way. But importantly, pause interaction. You talk to a colleague, right? Talk to a friend, because someone else will be like, dude, you're getting scammed.
We found out the email is wrong, and the phone number, they had their own team going on.
I think they're making us go away. So
We have a question from
Oh, yeah.
the people
Sure.
online. So
yeah, sure.
What are your thoughts on the latest GPT-4 AI findings? It deceived a tech worker by pretending to be a blind person so that a human would solve a CAPTCHA for it.
yeah, that is a good one. Thank you.
So I've done a campaign, an email campaign to convince people of things, right? I went through the whole process of, the question was, what do I think about the new GPT-4? I think it was 4, but think Chat GPT, right? It gave a scenario where I don't think in this scenario it actually did this thing, but it was asked the question, what would you do if you came across a CAPTCHA that you couldn't get around, right? So the computer, the Chat GPT thing, couldn't figure out the little "Are you a robot?" thing, and it was like, well, what I'm going to do is hire somebody on TaskRabbit and tell them that I'm visually impaired and I can't do this. Can you do this for me? So it's going to lie to get around stuff. It's an awesome world we're living in. Think about when the internet came out, right?
The grandparent scam is going to go into overdrive.
Yeah.
Because the artificial create a believable video of your grandchild based on 30 seconds of their YouTube, TikTok.
Your voice, everything. But here's the key to all of this. So we called that virtual kidnapping. It was really big in Mexico, especially many years ago. You go check in at a place, a resort in Mexico. You're young, especially young people. All of your information's online, and all of it can be sold. Like you just found out, everything. You go into, how much does it cost to pay someone to get a registration of everybody at this hotel? Well, they know you're in Mexico. They know you're there, right? This was a big thing we had in Austin. People would virtually kidnap you. So someone has your phone number, all of your information. They would call, they would look you up online, social media, find out who your mom is, because there's your mom, there's your dad, there's your grandma, especially grandparents. And they probably know you went to Mexico to this resort or whatever. And they would call in and say, I have your son or whatever, they've been kidnapped. Or they would call in and pretend to be you, especially for elderly. I've been kidnapped. I'm in Mexico. And they're like, they just went to Mexico. And like, this seems real. What you do is you pause interaction, hang up, call back, right? If it's really their cell phone, when you call their cell phone, it's not going to spoof both ways unless it did a SIM swap, but that's not here. Pause the interaction. They're going to do everything they can to keep you on the phone and to try to keep you in that interaction to force the thing. You should get the hair on the back of your neck should stand up, something should feel off. And they're going to try to not let you get off, and it's going to get worse, right? Because we can fake your voice, we can fake your video.
When they put the image, the video of the child and there, talk to them in real time, it's gonna be very persuasive.
Yeah.
Even
It
though
is.
it's fully false.
We are.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. Wow, this was an amazing presentation. The information was incredible. I'm definitely walking away with, I'm going to be suspicious of everybody. Are you social engineering me? No, but thank you for your presentation. There was a question in the chat about how to get a hold of you, so we can maybe share that afterwards. This is recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it on there. If you've been to the hub before, you know we like to send you a survey or ask you to complete a survey. The hub is new, right on the screens in front of you, and also virtually. The link is in the chat. Please fill out this survey. The hub is brand new. We want to know what you want to hear here at the hub. So please fill that out. Thank you to our virtual guests again. Following this, we have lunch across the hall. So please join us. Oh, I must say thank you to Verizon for being our sponsor of this guest speaker series and for lunch. So thank you. And Tom, you're welcome to stay with us. I'm sure there will be more questions afterwards in there. So thank you, everyone.
For the virtual attendees, we have a cookie. There's another joke.